Hello, Internet. This is Evan Benton with Dogg for Mayor, here for another installation of my attempt to translate the Tao Te Ching. And I'm going to continue for my second installment with chapter 42 because to my mind it really directly refers to the Trinity, and I think that's super fascinating. And as I said in my first video on chapter 1, I'm looking at this from a Christian perspective and not a syncretic perspective, but that's interesting too. In other words, I don't think, I don't believe that all religions point to an underlying truth. I think that there is only one way to truth, and that is through the revealed teachings of Jesus Christ, who is God, made man, so on and so forth. And as I said in my first video, my Christian theology is pretty weak, so don't beat me up too much on that. All right, so we're just going to go right into it. Chapter 42 is called The Transformation of the Tao. And these titles, in my translation that I read, they didn't have these. So, these are not traditionally part of the Tao Te Ching. They aren't integral. They're appended later. And also, it didn't have these like verse breakdowns. So this chapter being broken down into 5 verses. This is also, I guess it's traditional, but it's not, it's not integral to the work. So this one means Tao, the way, and this one means change. And so like a word that I'm familiar with that uses this is chemistry, which is this word, this character, and then the character for study, which is nowhere around here, but that would be kagaku, the study of changes, I guess. So right away we've got the Tao. Is going to pop up. Come on, guys. Anyway, the Tao gives birth to the One. The One gives birth to the Two. The Two gives birth to the 3. And the 3 gives birth to the 10,000 things. So, and this is kind of just blew my mind when I read this just a few weeks ago, I guess. Because here we are, we're going the one thing, the 2 things, the 3 things, and then all the things, right? And I swear it is like a Mandela effect or something, but I thought it always said the 2 gives birth to the 5, like it was a reference to the wuxing, the 5 changes or 5 phases of Chinese philosophy, but I'm probably just misremembering that. At any rate, there's some ambiguity here that people have talked about before because the way that Chinese is structured, this could be the 1, or it could be the first, or it could be one thing. And then likewise, the 2 could be 2, the number 2, the second thing, 2 things, and so forth. So is it the first thing giving birth to the 2 things? And then the second thing giving birth to the third thing? Or is it the 1 giving birth to the 2, and then the 2 giving birth to the 3? Well, we don't really know. There's no way to reconcile that because of the ambiguity of the language. So these translations, though, so the Tao produced 1, and so this is interesting because the Tao here is separate from the 1. We can at least, conclusively say that that's what this is saying, because the Tao is creating the 1, or not creating us. Sorry, giving birth to the 1. So the Tao is separate from then the 1, the 2, and the 3, or the Trinity, as we're kind of saying. And as Suzuki here says, right, reason begets unity, unity begets duality, duality begets Trinity, and Trinity begets the 10,000 things. So, and then over here it says unity, duality, Trinity as well. So, we're kind of talking about oneness, two-ness, three-ness as, these numbers as context, as concepts, or as generative principles. And as I kind of spoiled just there, we're using this character to give birth to. We're not saying create. So we're deliberately putting the relationship between these numerical in a different category from that of creation, right? It's not that the one, creates the two and so forth. So they're related to each other in a way which is similar to the way that one thing which gives birth to another thing, the way that those two things are related. So we're not setting them apart in terms of creator and creation. They're co-equal, as it were. So then, continuing, here we have the 10,000 things again. Remember, we just had it up here. The 10,000 things bear on their backs yin, but they hold in their arms yang. So I don't know if you want to read these, but this character means on your back, and this character means in your arms. So both referring to their relation to these two cosmic principles. This is yin, first of all, and this is yang. And I'm not going to get into these, but this is definitely, this is yin and yang. Okay, and interestingly, I'll just say that yin really means in the thing that you can't see. So of course it's going to be the thing that's on your back, right? And I think the best way to have them make sense to so yang is like your palms if you're looking at them, and then yin is, how do I do that for the camera? The yang is a part of your hands you can see. Yin is a part of your hands you can't see. Another good translation is I think windward and leeward. I think windward means like on an island, like if it's isolated, it's the part of the island, the side that gets the prevailing winds, and then the leeward side is the part that doesn't get the prevailing winds, so it's more protected. So that's what yin and yang really means. So yang is the thing you're looking at, yin is the thing you're not looking at. And then so on, so forth. It says chong chu. This means steam, I guess. So it's something to do in Chinese where they'll put two words or two characters together that mean similar things, and together they'll have a more precise application for that together. So this is when I looked this up, because this first character is in Japanese, but it's only really it means open sea. So it's kind of like, I think in terms of like these two things related to qi. This is qi. Like qigong, or just everyone knows about qi nowadays. This is like, and this does mean breath or steam or gas. And then this means kind of like, I guess it means like sea foam, like it's or salt spray like coming off of the water. And then in Japanese it's oki, so it's the first character in the name of the island chain Okinawa. And so this is not a word in Japanese, but when I looked it up in some Chinese dictionaries, it's used in like things like steam pipes and like pressure relief valve, kinds of like technical words like this. Okay, anyway, so steam, and then by way of this, it becomes harmonious. And then this character by itself in Japanese means the old name for Japan, the island chain Yamato, but it also means harmony in that kind of like stereotypical sense, of balance and things like that. And then this part, this is a bad editing on the part of this page, so I'm sorry about that. But this 3 here, which is translated into English, and these 3 really starts here in the Chinese, and it goes to here. So they cut it off wrong, so that's a bummer. So yeah, anyway, so this whole thing, let's read it, okay? So the 10,000 things bear yin on their backs and or but carry yang in their, carry yang in their arms. The 10,000 things bear yin on their backs, but carry yang in their arms. And then by way of steam, they become harmonious. So I suppose this means, in terms of steam, I don't really know what it means. Does it mean that they're sort of like, kind of boiling and becoming a new substance together? I guess something like that. They're here and then they're boiling up and then they're becoming a third kind of thing. Or I don't know. Breath of vacancy is what they say. They are harmonized by the breath of vacancy. That, doesn't, I don't think this does much. These are actually all old translations, though. I was reading about them. They're all from around the turn of the 20th century, so that's what they were saying back then. Anyway, Suzuki says the immaterial breath renders them harmonious. So, doesn't really, anyway. The third principle, though, this is interesting, in terms of like the Trinity, the third principle, chi, makes them harmonious. And I didn't get around to looking it up, but I mean, there's clearly, this does mean in some contexts, the chi means like spirit. So, to my mind, and well, in Greek, pneuma, the breath, is the Holy Spirit, right? So that's a great option for sort of a, similar principle there in these two languages. So yeah, the third principle makes them harmonious. And, as I've said, I'm not great on the, what is it, Trinitarian theology, like really understanding those concepts as they relate together. And I definitely would not say like where that kind of goes, which is yang equals God, yin equals Jesus Christ, and then chi equals the Holy Spirit. But it is, I think, it's kind of what this is. There's something going on here where there's two principles, okay, and we relate to them in these specific ways, whereas one is obvious, one is not so obvious, and then there's a third principle that takes the obvious and the subtle and unifies them into, basically what we perceive as reality. And my legs are falling asleep. Excuse me. I'm a little lower now on the chair, but I'm sure you can still see me. All right. So the third one is this whole deal over here. All right. So people, apostrophe S, place, bad. So what people dislike, and that's what it says here. What people dislike, what men dislike, and then what people find odious or hateful, and those things which are detested by the common people. I wouldn't poo-poo that word common there, because so what people dislike are. This is only and only together, or only and lonely. So this is just like, or similar to up here we have two similar words together, two similar characters together, and they make a new word. So lonely plus lonely equals lonely. And you find that a lot. It's kind of frustrating, but it's something that they use in Chinese languages and languages based on Chinese. So what people dislike are loneliness, widowed, so losing your wife, or sorry, losing your husband, and then not grain. And this is actually from a pictogram for a granary or a storehouse. So, not having grain, not having, provisions or, what's the word, goods, the things you need. So what people dislike is being lonely, being widowed, and not having grains. But kings and princes by this become weighed or named. So, and this is the hard part of this sentence for me. This is another character that doesn't exist in Japanese. So, and it was hard to look up what it really means because I don't know how common it is. But so this is one of those things where you've got to say, you've got a bunch of words that don't really go together in English, and it says it means all of these, okay? But so this means to weigh, to state, to name, and to praise, okay? And in Japanese, it's mostly to praise, homeru. So the bad thing, for people is loneliness, being widowed, and not having goods. But for kings and princes, it is by this that they are known. And I think I have a good interpretation of this that's a little bit different from what they're saying over here. Okay, so what they're saying over here is, so normal people don't like these things, but kings, look, kings and princes these are the designations which kings and princes use for themselves. So it's like, I'm going to be the king, I'm going to be the widowed king, I'm going to be the provisionless king, I'm going to be the lonely king. And I don't think that really helps the viewer or the reader. Kings and princes select as their titles. Well, that's what I just said. That doesn't make sense. And then, and it says titles again. So I think this is misleading or incorrect. And I'm not a scholar of Chinese, so don't, say that I'm just correcting these people, okay? But I do feel that what it's doing with this passage is it's actually setting up a parallelism between this word Chang and this word he, or harmony, okay? Because of the sense of the word as way, okay? And you think about way and name, well, to weigh can be to establish something as being like, like if you have to fill a jar, like if you're selling a jar and it has to be like 16 ounces of whatever, you can say, okay, you put the 16-ounce weight here and you put the jar here and you fill it until they balance each other, and that's like standard or established as, yes, that's a full jar, that's worth the price that however much you're charging for it, basically. So I think that we're setting up a parallelism where we're saying that the 10,000 things relate to yin and yang in a certain way, and then it's steam that harmonizes them. And then here we're saying that everyday people, people who don't necessarily relate to the Tao, fear these totally reasonable things to fear, but it's people who want to set themselves apart, in specifically in the sense of public service here. They are actually they're actually weighed by their responses to those things. So it's like you're testing their mettle, basically, is what this whole passage means to me. So a normal person, we think about like being lonely, and we just think, well, they're lonely and that's bad for them. But for like a real, like a hero or what have you, we just say, well, it was that loneliness, that period of loneliness, maybe that that they were able to overcome, and that gave them some ability to to contribute to society, basically. And the same with all these things. Being a widow might mean that you're like a monk or something like that, but you've lost something, but you've gained something else. Perfect segue to the last part then of of what they're calling verse 3. Okay, so, and that's down here, starting with gu, on purpose, or the reason, things perhaps decrease, apostrophe s, as well as increase. What? Oh, sorry. And then the same thing again, perhaps increase, apostrophe s, as well as decrease. So that is gobbledygook, I'm sure. But if we look at these 5 characters, and then you look at these 5 characters, you'll see that they're exactly the same, and that the only thing is that these two characters have flip-flopped. So it's just another clear parallelism, which is predicated by this little clause, which means, for this reason, things, and then the next part of it, okay? So for this reason, some things may increase by decreasing, and some things may decrease by increasing. Okay, so it's hard for me to really wrap my head around. So let's see what the translations here say. So it is that some things are increased by being diminished, and others are diminished by being increased. Or, thus, on the one hand, loss implies gain, and on the other hand, gain implies loss. And there are some things which it is a gain to lose and a loss to gain. So let's just go with Goddard's. I like this one. I think that's the most clear. And as it relates back to here, well, and as it relates to, I would argue, the yin and the yang, the idea of, being burdened by something, can yet, there's a reason you're carrying something on your back, and then you get to the point where you get around to using it, and then you're grateful that you carried it all that way, And it's the same with just, I think we can just kind of say these are just like these three bad things: loneliness, being widowed, and not having adequate provisions. Those are like character building situations that might turn you into a king or a prince. So that's that for that one. And then let's see. All right, now this one is kind of, okay. So this is just one line in here, but probably this whole thing is the same. But looking at just that one line, what other men teach, I also teach, right? Person, apostrophe S, place, teaching. Yeah, this means teach or religion. So, and like church is going to have this word in it too, or this character. So, and then me or I also teach, apostrophe S. So other people's teaching is also my teaching. And this is, when I was just reading it through, I was like, this for the first point, I would say, this definitely contradicts Christianity, because we're saying this is just the same thing everyone else is saying, right? But hold on. Before I get into that, I'm just going to point out that, where is it? So this, well, no, I forgot what I was going to say here. I was just going to say that this character, place, is also the same up in, where did it go? Oh yeah, other people's place. So other people's, well, it doesn't say other people down here, so that helps you understand that we're not really talking about other people here in comparison to me. We're saying people and then me, and then here we're saying people. Well, we said common people, right? So this isn't saying common people. It's just, people as opposed to kings and princes, okay? And then here we're saying people as opposed to me, okay? And it's like, so this word means place, like, as for people, or it says what, that which people do, that which people teach, I also teach. And then my, right, or apostrophe S. So that which is the people's, that which is the people's teaching is also my teaching, I guess, is probably the most direct translation there, okay? That which others teach, I also teach. And that's pretty concurrent with everything else people are saying here. And then the last one gets a little wacky. So strong, and then beam, and I don't know what this really means, but here they're saying violent and strong. So strong and aggressive. I think this is probably just one of the two character words that I've seen before. Strong and beam. Obviously, a beam that holds up a whole roof is going to be strong. So, this is probably just kind of like strong in the way that a beam is strong. And then this means like these people, not. And then this is a 3-character word that only exists in Chinese, so I had to look it up. This first character means suitable, and then this means its death. So what they translate as natural death, this means like the death they deserve or the death they have earned. The death that you would, in the idea that a death is like a good thing, like a warrior's death, or something like that. That's what this refers to. So it means the strong do not. Well, yeah, the strong do not die their natural death, is what this says. The strong do not die the death they deserve. And then I, and then these are 2 different words for I, and there's a lot of different words for I in Chinese and Japanese, and they all have just different connotations. This is like a more formal, like my house, like the royal we kind of thing. And then this, I'm not sure what this means. Should have looked that up. So, but this means I again. And then shall, by this, become teaching or religion father. And so we're back to, for me, looking at this and thinking, maybe is that father meaning God? Like I'm kind of thinking it goes. Because back here, we said what other men teach, I also teach. So that's very different from Christianity saying there's only one way through the Father, right? But here we're saying the Father. So, is that kind of saying then or can it be interpreted to say that there's a common truth to what he's saying, like this is congruent with just common reality or interpretations of reality, but then there's also the specific interpretation that you can only get from me. So the only translation that even mentions the word father is this one here. I will obey the doctrine's father. And they're translating religion or teaching as doctrine there. So that's fair. This one says the doctrine of the Tao. Not clear to me that who means Tao. And then just my interpretation of this meaning, like I would say, I shall make this. I shall therefore transmit the teachings of the Father is kind of how I feel led to interpret this. But that's problematic because of the way the Chinese is. Again, this isn't right. We have this character apostrophe S, and that's not here. We're not saying Father apostrophe S teaching, okay? It could be that he's saying I'm going to become the teacher. I'm going to become the father of this teaching. But I don't think that really makes sense based on, what we were saying before. And the basis, right, of what he's saying here. I'll make this the basis of my teaching. Yeah, I don't know that you get that from here. It's just that you're saying the strong do not die a natural death, and I shall, by the fact that the strong do not die a natural death, I would say, I will become the teaching of the Father. So I think this is teaching of the Father. But as I said, it's not super clear here. it's interesting to me that none of these other two use the word father, because that's just, if you remember from the first chapter, we had mother, and this is father. So, I mean, and it was mother, very, very clearly just the character for mother. It's actually a pictogram for boobies. This is, I don't know what it's a pictogram for, but it's just very unambiguously the word father, and yet it's not showing up in these other two translations. And just back to this one, I will obey the doctrine's father. Well, the problem with that interpretation is that, we don't get that anywhere in the rest of the text. So I will obey the doctrine's father. Well, who is that? I don't see that. So I'll just go back and read it again, including my little dodgy thing at the end here. The Tao begets the one begets the two beget the three beget the 10,000 things. The 10,000 things bear yin on their backs, but yang in their arms. By steam, they become harmonious, or they're reconciled. What people hate is loneliness, widowhood, lack of goods, but for kings and princes, by this they are weighed. And harmony and weighing. And for this reason, things may increase by decreasing, or they may decrease by increasing. What people teach, I also teach. Strength, the strong do not die a natural death. I shall therefore teach the teachings of the Father. And that's about it. So give me some comments down below if you felt that was helpful or not. And I'll see you next time for another installation of the Tao Te Ching by Evan Benton. This is Dogg from Air. Thanks for watching.